unhealthy behaviors like poor diet, physical inactivity, or smoking are the main accounting risk for preventable chronic conditions. To avoid them, different measures have been proposed along the years, but usually they require specific interventions and monitoring in order to be adapted as habits. WellCo objective is to provide personalized advice, guidance, and follow-up of users for the adoption of healthier behavior choices that help them to maintain or improve their health and well-being status. WellCo will focus the coaching process on the active establishment of personalized goals and pathways to each user through a dynamic modeling that takes into account a variety of factors, including health goals, health outcomes, monitoring of physical activity, vital signs, stress, sleep patterns, anxiety, depression, mental status, and the context of the users. With this purpose, WellCo project has defined a consortium of 8 partners from 5 different countries: Spain, Italy, Slovenia, Denmark, and the Netherlands. With this amazing consortium, we have built WellCo project. Hello, I'm Immaculada Luengo, the project coordinator of this amazing journey towards behavior change, monitoring, personalization, wearables, and so many innovations that we have gone through along this 3 years project. Currently, we are in the final phase, in the final longitudinal trials that are currently taking place in Denmark, Spain, and Italy. Our main objective is to achieve a behavior trend change towards healthier lifestyle of the people involved in the trials. Let's hope that through the continuous evaluation we are carrying on through quantitative and qualitative parameters, we could achieve these successful results of the project. In the meanwhile, keep updated about the project news with the newsletter and also follow us on the social network.
Hello, I am Enrico Piras and I'm a researcher at FBK and I have organized the Italian trials for the WellCo project. We have recruited participants with a collaboration of the local intermediate organization which have senior centers in the region. First of all, the participants show great appreciation for having been selected and having had the possibility to be a part of the project. The main reason to join the project for almost 90% of participants was to improve their lifestyle and especially physical activity. And they shown great appreciation for both the usability of the application and the usefulness in keeping track of their sleep patterns, the physical activity and the diet. The application had a positive effect in stimulating them to perform extra physical activity, and all in all, WellCo had a mild positive impact on their lifestyle. To give you an overall idea of the results in the Italian trial, we have selected 2 users. The first is a senior center with no prior use of technology. The second is the most tech-savvy among our users, a sport enthusiast with experience with several professional devices and application for sports and well-being.
E poi il fatto di avervi questa proposta, di aver avuto questa proposta della camminata, eccetera, eccetera, dico la verità è che per me è stato un toccasana, no? Perché poi ti nasce un orgoglio dentro e vuoi dimostrare che tutto sommato riesci a fare delle cose ancora. E sono state molto utili, dico la verità, perché altrimenti sarei beh, oggi non vado, oggi non ho voglia, oggi è freddo, oggi è caldo. Invece questo è stato un incentivo e l'ho colto proprio come un incentivo e visto anche sul piano della salute, perché ti tiene col movimento, eccetera, eccetera, ti tieni in forma. Difatti mi sembra di essere rinato da quando ho incominciato a fare queste camminate. Pertanto, tutto sommato, dico, è stata un'esperienza validissima. È stato un grande incentivo sul piano dell'impegno e una bella esperienza, come dicevo. Guarda, io ti dico la verità, ma quando ero ancora in attività, che ero giovane, la tecnologia l'ho sempre rifiutata e preferivo continuare a fare per me. Questo forse è dato perché ho sempre avuto una segretaria e pertanto non mi impegnavo nemmeno a mettere le mani sulla macchina da scrivere, no? E pertanto sul piano della tecnologia non sono avvezzo, insomma, non sono uno che è molto spigliato nel mandar via.
Aspetti positivi, come tutte le app nuove, sono tutte positivi, qualsiasi cosa ben venga. Sì, migliora, sì, ci sono diverse robette che vanno bene, cioè puoi monitorare un po' la tua giornata, quanto passi fai, man mano in base a quello delle tue esigenze. Sì, direi che è utile e anche piacevole in certi giorni, così vedi tutto il tuo andazzo della giornata di sonno, il tuo la tua sinusoide del sonno, eccetera. Sì, questi diagrammi sono anche piacevoli. Un diagramma dei passi non sono tanto ben rappresentativi. Quello sarebbe il caso di farli più, perché dare una buona un'occhiata a quella parte del programma, mentre le altre due, cioè, come dicevo, che vanno sempre col GPS, sono molto più precise, oltretutto molto più costose, quindi tutto dipende. Quando dico costose mi riferisco all'orologio che c'è dentro il GPS. In un telefono l'orologio non è preciso come un GPS, come un orologio di un GPS più costoso. Fai conto che un GPS costano poche decine di euro, ci sono GPS che costano decine di migliaia di euro. Quindi tutto sta nella precisione del GPS. Comunque, come per l'uso normale, penso che questa app vada bene. Sì, se uno vuole monitorare, esempio, quanti passi, la corsa, il nuoto, che con questa app può farlo benissimo. Nella vita quotidiana può andare anche bene.
Hi, everybody. My name is Anders Larrabee Sunderland. I'm a postdoc and a psychologist at the Department of Public Health at the University of Southern Denmark. For the past 2 years, I've been the project manager of the Danish arm of the WellCo project. Now that the final trial 3, has been completed, I'd like to tell you a bit more about our experience of implementing the WellCo project here in Denmark. The main objective of the WellCo trials was to test the WellCo smartphone application. To this end, we looked mainly at participant experience of using the app, and specifically in terms of general usefulness, app functionality, and any participant's self-reported lifestyle changes that may have resulted from using the app. The Danish trial recruited an initial sample of 47 participants. Of these, 28 were female and 19 were male, and participant mean age was 65 years. Due to participant attrition, however, the final sample for trial 3 included 22 participants. Participants were from all over Denmark, but a small majority were from Copenhagen and the surrounding areas. Participants were recruited through public advertisements and existing mailing lists from other research projects at the University of Southern Denmark. Once informed consent was given, participants received a materials package in the mail, including a pre-configured smartphone and watch, as well as detailed instructions for participation and tech use. In terms of implementing the trial, we experienced several facilitators, but also a number of barriers. For example, several factors helped us generate initial interest in the project. These included the health focus of the overall project, that is, people seemed to respond well to the basic idea of the WellCo app. The technology involved also seemed to excite people somewhat, including the prospect of receiving a smartphone and a watch, and also trialing a brand new health app. Finally, the international nature of the project might also have attested to its legitimacy and credibility and encouraged interest and overall participation. As mentioned, implementation of the trial also was not without its tribulations. For example, while participants expressed initial positivity about the prospect of receiving a phone and a watch, most participants generally did not like the Android phone and were therefore reluctant to use it as their primary phone. This forced participants to carry two phones in their daily lives. And for some, this issue caused withdrawals from the study. Participants also had trouble with connectivity issues, such as transferring watch data to the WellCo app. And finally, at a more general level, recruiting and retaining participants was generally difficult. This may have been due to the fact that we recruited from all over the country as opposed to within, for example, an aged care facility. And therefore, we were not able to meet and communicate with potential participants face to face. I should also mention that the COVID-19 pandemic also caused several lockdowns in Denmark during the trial period, which probably also caused a disruption in participant focus and activities. While implementing the WellCo trials in Denmark has not been without its challenges, it has ultimately been an educational and rewarding experience. Now that the trials are completed, we're excited to analyze and disseminate the final results, both for the project as a whole, as well as across individual trial sites. Ultimately, we hope that the WellCo application turns out to be a useful and marketable tool that helps people to achieve and maintain a healthy lifestyle. And that's it for Denmark. Thank you very much for listening.
Hi all, I am Paloma Jimeno. I am Scientific Coordinator at Iberia, and I have been the person in charge of managing Work Package 3. The main idea of this work package has been the definition of the WellCo architecture and the implementation of the different prototypes envisaged in the project. In order to do this, we had followed an incremental and iterative cycle that is composed of the following steps.
Initially, we define the user and technical requirements. Later, we proceed to the design and implementation of Prototype 1. This prototype was later validated by 15 users in Italy, Denmark, and Spain. The feedback provided by users was used to update the requirements and to continue with the implementation of Prototype 2. This prototype was validated by 30 users. Following the safe process, we finally arrived to the final prototype of WellCo, with all the functionalities, and that has been tested by around 90 users. Also, on the picture here you can see the WellCo architecture. On the left hand, the devices worn by users and that are used to monitor them, mainly smartwatches and smartphones. On the top, the main monitoring modules: nutrition, physical activity, mental health, etc. The outputs from these modules are used by the architecture core in the center of the picture to assess how the user is and what approach we should follow in order to help him to change the behavior. The evolution of the different prototypes can be shown also here. The first prototype had very basic functionalities. the initial interfaces, the authentication process, the device's integration, and very basic profile information. Later, in prototype 2, we already included the part of affective computing that will be later used in the code and the whole process of user assessment. And finally, we arrived to prototype 3, that includes WellCo code and the main processes around behavior chain. I mean, when we know user lifestyle and contextual data, the emotional status, and the assessment of the general well-being status, we are able to fit the main recommenders around WellCo: nutritional, mental, social, emotional, and provide the recommendation that fits the most with user capability, opportunity, and motivation for behavior change. Finally, to summarize everything, let's see a short video with all the functionalities that are included in WellCo.
Hello, everyone. My name is Katarzyna Łach. I am a leader of quality of life technologies at the University of Copenhagen, contributing to Horizon 2020 WellCo project. And today I would like to tell you about our work package 4. It's the work package dedicated to deployment of these different services, which has been introduced to you. And I would like to say, I'm going to tell you what's behind all these different services and applications you have been introduced to in the previous presentations of my colleagues. But before I go any further, I would like to reintroduce you to the project goal. You have been hearing about us contributing to development of personalized virtual coaching platform, personalized advice, guidance, and follow-up. Personalization related to key issues like diet, physical activity, risk avoidance, preventing aspects of behaviors, and more, including affective computing, meaning that our particular platform is aware of the moods and emotions and feelings of the individual using it, such it can adapt its interactive modes, and then also facilitate interaction with other carers, like informal carers, family members, and expert caregivers like nurses and others. Beyond all of this, there are intelligent algorithms which then build a model for behavior, as well as build a model for behavior change for the individual. So what's behind all of this? As you may have seen before in previous presentation of my colleagues, what's behind is a quite complex, yet quite understandable and also feasible, as we could prove in our project, analytical platform for collecting data feeds from the individuals, the individuals being the participants, study participants, but also WellCo users, and then caregivers and experts. On one hand, we have these data feeds. On the other hand, we have all different modules which are then making sense out of this data. So we're making sense through the profile, we're making sense through the monitoring models for nutrition, physical activity, mental health, and more. And then the core of the WellCo is this analytical platform for user dynamic modeling, including affective modeling, including then feeding this included data sources into recommendations, as well as then bringing it back to the user via interfaces, via mobile application, not just to the user itself, but also to his and her caregivers. So with respect to the my discussion today and my presentation, I would like to focus on this user state assessment. So what's behind all this different behavior assessment and behavior change is that first you will need to understand how do we accurately, timely, and ideally in privacy-preserving manner can assess the user state to better tackle the assessments of behaviors and also the assessment of trends and potential behavior change techniques and feedback. So first of all, let's just talk about data feeds. These different data sources, which were presented here by view on some kind of wearable and mobile app. There is a video, audio, by means of which the user participates in the social network, and also other outcomes, so-called expert outcomes, which are the reported outcomes by the caregivers, and as I said, informal or formal caregivers. On the other hand, on top here, we have the algorithms. The algorithms which are constituting our different modules. Each module is responsible for its own domain, I would say. We call it quality of life domain, but in the WellCo project, we've been talking about user state domain with respect to nutrition, physical health, mental health, and as I also will tell you in a moment, social well-being. And then this particular inputs of monitoring models go into user state assessment, which then builds a computational model of all these different domains. So it's really leveraging all these different data sources from these monitoring modules in order to make a holistic view on the user state. Then when you get back into data sources, thinking like, what's so exactly where WellCo is getting this data? So first of all is the user profile, in which the user or his or her caregiver will fill out the age, gender, socioeconomics, some aspects of family situation, family past diseases, family settings, availability, location-based availability of family members for example, spontaneous visit, pets, if the user has pets, what are those different activities which the user likes, not likes. I also should mention here the nutrition. From perspective of nutrition, of course, it's interesting and important to know what the user likes or not, or if the user is vegetarian, in order to have a proper and accurate assessment and also recommendation and feedback. So here we have one of the data sources, profile. The second data source is the self-report. The self-report, we may say, okay, we are asking the users to fill up online questionnaires. These questionnaires are constructed along the validated scales, and these particular scales have a validity with respect to accuracy of assessed measure or outcome, like nutrition or physical health or mental health or quality of life. So you may say these are the self-reported measures. And then, as already have been hinted and mentioned, smartphone, the user's smartphone is a sensor as well as a wearable worn by him or her. And in this project, we are leveraging TicWatch and Nokia Steel heart rate. So as it has been already presented to you, this development of the overall development of WellCo has happened in different cycles. There were different prototype cycles in which a new particular cycle we had expanded our development, we have provided new modules, we have been also expanding our evaluation criteria and to provide even more feedback to the next stage. So there were 3 different prototypes, and I would like to just summarize at the high level that in the first prototype, we mostly focus on building the user profile and linking the wearables to the platform. Wearables then, as I will show in a moment, they provide different behavior data sets. The second prototype was focused on already existing profile, adding a new questionnaires, additionally adding some particular self-reports, which are later also included and expanded in prototype 3, but like we started in already on prototype 2, and then also expanding the wearables, understanding the reliability, the accuracy, the timeliness of all the data provided by the wearable. And in the prototype 3, I may say we have been expanding towards all the possible data sources, validated, reliable, accurate, timely ways of collecting and really making sure that we have all necessary data inputs in place, again, from perspective of the profile, self-reports, wearables, and also smartphones. Smartphones become a sensor because smartphones have already embedded different data sources, including location, including physical activity, including light sensor, including aspects of social interaction. So smartphone has been then leveraged as a potential data source in Work Package 4. So let me just kind of elaborate on what are these particular data sets acquired. So what's behind, right? Because I told you that we're going to talk about what's behind of these different recommendations and behavior assessment. So what's the data sets acquired and modeled via machine learning? By machine learning, we understand different span of methods, which makes sense out of data, depending on the data type and depending on the particular outcome we are looking to. Sometimes we are looking into basic statistical models, and sometimes we look into more complex neural network models, and anything in between, from Bayesian networks to decision trees and other aspects of machine learning based modeling, which we leverage in this project. So for nutrition, we've been looking specifically, nutrition is hard to monitor via wearables, but we've been looking into assessing the self-reported values of different intake of fats and sugars and vegetables and fruits and others, but as well as we try to leverage wearables. In this Work Package 4, we've been looking into how can we quantify bites, how can we recognize the meals. With respect to self-reports of the nutrition, I would like to also point out that it's not only about food quality and type, but also about quantity, duration, setup in 24-hour, the frequency, and other aspects of nutrition. So that was nutrition. There's for physical activity, we have self-reports and wearables. Self-reports would be self-reported physical activity aspects, like amounts of steps taken, amounts of exercise undertaken in a week. But we mostly actually related this particular outcome, physical activity, with wearables data sets. And we've been looking into the steps, the calories burned, physical activity levels, and their placement in the day. And as a physical activity levels, we mean the low, medium, and high physical activity levels, also called vigorous, and medium called moderate physical activity levels. The lowest one are called light physical activity levels, and they may correspond to the physical activity levels which are defined by World Health Organization. And so we've been looking into what has been happening in the daily life of the users and how much physical activity they have through the day and what's their placement in the day, and also how persistent they are with their behaviors. Additionally to physical activity, I also want to mention that we also look into sleep. Sleep is influencing everything what happens through the day. Sleep is related to physical activity, as some research shows. Different aspects of physical activity through the day that influence the sleep night after. And then the night sleep influences the physical activity attitudes, but also real aspects of getting enough physical activity the day after. So there is a quite dependency between physical activity and sleep. That's why we added also in this particular task, we added the sleep duration, sleep placement in the day, sleep interruptions, and other aspects of sleep, which were reported by wearables. Then we get into mental health, which it's hard to measure mental health status via wearables, specifically by by means of this off-the-shelf available for us wearables. They are particular wearables or wearable systems, I would say, for measuring, for example, the brain activity and assessing different aspects of behavior. However, we are not going to deploy those because they are not really wearable. You cannot go around with a very interesting sensor set on our heads or around our bodies. So looking into wearables which are available for us, we have been looking into, as I said, sleep and physical activity, but for mental health, we'd rather rely on self-reports. So in general, we have picked up the mental health score, overall health score, as well as focus specifically on anxiety, depression, and stress aspects. With respect to social well-being and social interaction, social well-being, smartphone has become a sensor as well as self-reports. So first of all, smartphone has been used to understand if the user is indoor or outdoor, as well as what are the social interactional patterns we can see from smartphone usage, what is calls, text, social media apps usage by the user. And then self-reported values were also introduced, and I will just mention on top of my head, it was the social support scale, for example. So how much the user is feeling that his or her environment is supporting her efforts and overall life goals and challenges. I would also like to add, as it's here, the number of social interactions in the network, in the social network of WellCo, like number of posts, likes, number of friends, has been also somehow indicator of the social well-being, social interactions of the user, WellCo user. I would like to also add that from the data sets, as I told you, we try to make sense out of based on the particular evidence from data sets, we try to derive the specific outcomes from nutrition, physical activity, mental health, social well-being. And the last one was health risk awareness. So that's something I'm going to tell you in a moment. And it's about leveraging all these different data sources to understand if the user is at risk of chronic illness in the long term, like a chronic illness like cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. And this, the data sources specifically related to self-reporting and wearables have been leveraged there. So as you can see that in this work package, we have tried to really make sense out of these different data sources. We've been leveraging data from Profile. Oh, I should have mentioned that the data from Profile has been leveraged in all these different components, modules, and then many of them rely on self-reporting, many of them rely on data provided by wearables, and then also smartphone. So let me show you an example of WellCo visualization. So what's behind, but also now what's behind and what has been produced. So what has been produced, you have been already seeing in other presentations. These are the different screenshots of applications where the user can see activities, sleep, heart rate, and weight. And then there will be specific recommendations. So here we have an example of sleep and physical activity, and we can see the historical view, but we also can see the virtual coach proposing some sleep, proposing the user, informing the user the recommended amount of 8 hours sleep, and then remembering the walk and the fact that the walking helps you to stay at proper weight. And so there are aspects of, on one hand, monitoring, on the other hand, this visualizations for behavior change and feedback. And this is an example of nutrition where when we can see that the user has been filling up the self-reports, but different meals and different colors correspond to type of the meal. And then on the right-hand side, we can see that the user is self-reporting different aspects of eating vegetables, fruits, fish, sugar, protein, fiber, salt, fat, water, and then the coach is reacting to this by means of, would you like to set a goal to eat less sugar? So you may say work package 4 has done its best to collect all these different data sources, once again, self-reports, wearables, profile, self-reports, wearables, and smartphone in order to provide input into what's the particular state and behavior of the user, and then what is the particular behavior change which you can approach given the goals. And the goals are derived from the literature, scientific literature, as I mentioned, water organization, physical activity, or derived or provided by the user themselves, or set up by expert users, by caregivers, by professional caregivers. So all this work package 4 efforts and this what's behind, which I have explained to you, linking the user data and user assessment into these different recommenders, which are then sorted by relevance and user preferences and provide back to the user. And that concludes my presentation for work package 4. Thank you very much. And I'm looking forward to explain another modules. Thank you.
WellCo and its virtual coach want to persuade users to adopt healthier lifestyles. However, health behavior change, as this is called, is notoriously difficult. Research shows this, and most people who ever made a New Year's resolution to exercise more or something like that know it as well. One thing that WellCo is doing to be more persuasive is to adapt to user preferences, needs, and circumstances. We mostly accomplish this with artificial intelligence. In the rest of this video, my colleagues will explain how.
Iberia has been involved in Task 5.1 and also in Task 5.5. In the first Task 5.1, we have implemented an emotional classifier based on visual features. This information, together with the classifier based on speech features developed in Task 5.2, provide us information about the emotional status of the user. In the last task of this work package, Task 5.5, we implement the Welco training for behavior change that covers all the process in order to provide the recommendations to the users based on the information we already catch from work package 4 and work package 5.
Now let's explain Task 5.1, Emotional Classifier based on visual features. The emotional classifier takes bursts of pictures with the front camera when the user is interacting with the virtual code. In every picture, we apply a face detection algorithm and we crop the picture taking this area. The cropped picture is passed through a convolutional neural network that has been previously trained with several emotional datasets. The output of the network is the probability with which the user has each emotion. To decide emotional status, we get the average of every probability vector for a set of 4 frames. In the following picture, you can see what emotional classifier based on visual features get for a set of 4 frames, and what is the final emotion detecting when applying the average. Now let's finalize this work package 5 video with Task 5.5 Welco training for behavior change. This is one of the most important tasks in Welco. Once we get user data from the profile information, the emotional status based on speech and visual features, and the user assessment, after the monitoring of the physical well-being, mental, and nutritional status of the user in work package 4, we are ready to feed our recommenders. Welco depends on 6 recommenders: nutritional recommenders that provide information about food intake, well-being recommender in order to allow the user to stay healthy, the mental recommender that takes into consideration the stress, anxiety, and depression level of the user and tries to modify the behaviors of the user in this area, the social recommender that recommends the user people similar to him or her, the emotional recommender that, taking into consideration the emotional information of the user, try to provide general recommendations to change his or her mood, and finally the general recommender with daily life recommendations. All these recommendations are sorted by relevance and user preferences and provided to the user when he accesses to the virtual code. Here is an example of general recommendation about this COVID-19 situation.
To improve the accuracy of the emotion recognition model, we also constructed an emotion classifier based on the speech of the user. To build this classifier, we took speeches from different speech emotion recognition datasets, extracted features from these speeches, and then built different machine learning models. When testing, we noticed that the performance of the models is sensitive to the datasets on which the model was trained on. To be more precise, we noticed that when we trained the model on one dataset and tested the model on another dataset, the performance of the model drastically dropped when compared to a model that is trained and tested on the same dataset. This meant that if we wanted the speech emotion recognition model to work on WellCo users, we had to record our own dataset and build a model on this dataset. Because of this, we designed different realistic scenarios of users interacting with the virtual coach. In these scenarios, 10 sentences were expressed in 4 basic emotions. Then we asked 4 users, 2 male and 2 female, to act these scenarios, while the partners from Spain and Italy recorded their speech and video. Using this data, we could build a model that is more precise at detecting emotions from speech. Finally, we combined the outputs from the emotion classifiers from speech and video, and we built a single model for emotion recognition on our dataset. We noticed that this model can use the benefit from both the speech and the video classifier, and that it achieves 60% accuracy on the Italian dataset, as well as 80% accuracy for the Spanish dataset.
In the dynamic user modeling module, we try to predict the behavior of the users that use the WellCo application, and we try to find anomalies in this behavior. For this task, we use the recorded data of their physical activities, for example, the number of steps taken, their sleep pattern, and their mental state according to a filled-in questionnaire. At the number of steps made by a user, aggregated by each week, we can detect that in the highlighted week, the number of steps is unusually low. So we then can take all such anomalies from past user data and probabilistically model how likely an anomaly is to happen, given how big of a deviation it represents from the user's current trend. And then for each specific case like this one, we can reason if it's more likely that such anomaly happened purely by chance, or if there's something wrong with the user and they could benefit from an intervention from the WellCo application. A completely different use of dynamic user modeling is to take current and past user trends and then use machine learning to predict how many steps are they likely to make in the following weeks. And this can help motivate them towards achieving the set up daily step goals.
Hello, everybody. My name is Katarzyna Łak. I am a professor of computer science at the University of Copenhagen in Denmark. And I'm here to present to you the chronic disease risk assessment model developed in our Horizon 2020 project, WellCo. So, first of all, as I already told you in the previous presentation, as our colleagues are told you, we are making sense out of this raw data collected from the individuals in order to understand their behaviors, health, and particularly future health states. And in this module, we are specifically focused on disease risk assessment. Why is that? Because our daily repetitive behaviors contribute to this expression of chronic illness in the future. And what behaviors we're specifically looking into? Physical inactivity, poor nutrition, tobacco and alcohol use, as well as poor sleep patterns. Poor meaning not insufficient sleep or poor quality sleep. So based on the evidence from the literature, we're looking into disease risk for specific top chronic illnesses, which are the top killers worldwide. Cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and COPD, which is a chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. And in the brackets, there are names of these medical models, which are used for leveraging the calculation of the risk in the future. Let me give you an example of cardiovascular disease where we are using so-called global risk. This table, which reference is below, represents different models and they call it estimation systems here for recalculating the risk of future cardiovascular event, including stroke or myocardial infarction. So when we look at the different types of models, I would like that we pay attention to the last row. Last row represents the variables which are included in specific risk calculation. And they all include, more or less, the age, the gender. Many of them include cholesterol or blood pressure or smoking or particular family history or either individual history of, for example, hypertensive treatment. Additionally, our particular model, the global risk, which we used in WellCo, includes the question, self-reported diabetes. DM stands from diabetes. And then is then included as a variable in calculating of cardiovascular disease. So in order to illustrate it the best, I would like to present you a risk profile for our model senior. Model senior was a Spanish female, 35 years old, participating in this studies and being really our informant with respect to the WellCo efficacy. And she was also very diligent in providing her self-reported data sets, as well as wearing her wearable continuously and without interruptions and data losses. So when you look at her cardiovascular risk, actually it's quite low. Currently it's 1%. When we calculate all her inputs, it's a 1% of probability of having cardiovascular event in 10 years. And in 10 years, this risk increases to 2% just because of the aging. When we look at the COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease models, risk models, actually we cannot calculate it. She's already a COPD patient. She's already asthma. She has asthma at this particular point. But what's interesting when we look at the diabetes, she's a relatively healthy person, and the FIN risk with the model which we use recalculated that she has a 7% of risk of diabetes as of today. And how is that taking consideration what variables? So we're looking into age, gender, waist circumference, which is correlating with BMI, then blood pressure, physical activity profile, then daily consumption of vegetables, fruits and berries, and family history of diabetes. So these are the variables contributing to the current and future risk of diabetes. And then these are also the variables which we're thinking about changing. So which are the variables which we can change? Which are the modifiable variables which we could then leverage towards behavior change? Let me tell you this. So first of all, when you look at this lady with the risk of diabetes increasing from 7 to 9% in 10 years due to aging, if she continues like this, then the proposal would be help her to become physically active and change her waist circumference in order to lower this probability from 9% to 6%. In this particular table, it's not that easy to read, but you can see that in the columns, we represent different variables which are contributing from perspective of being risky or unrisky behaviors, or less risky behaviors, like eating fruits or no fruits, being active or not being active. And then the columns also represent this different variables on the other side, looking into age and waist circumference. So if we look at her, number 6 comes from her current status, where she's a particular age, she has a particular waist circumference, she confirms she's not eating fruits, and she is relatively active. So if she is particularly in 10 years, if she's still not eating fruits and she's not active, then she will have a risk of 9%. And then another scenario which we have developed for her was if she now, being at 9% in 10 years, 9% in 10 years, eating no fruits and being inactive, becomes active, but also changes her weight, circumvents, and starts eating vegetables and fruits daily, then she will lower her risk to 2%. So you may say even from high level, you can see that it could be statistically significant result, lowering the risk from almost 10% to 2%. And these particular scenarios are then guiding our behavior change approach for individuals. So we're looking into what are the modifiable risk factors like physical activity, fruits, weight loss, which is then linked to weight circumvents changes, and how do we change? How then we can change the risk of particular disease in the future. And then specifically, when we think about the first recommendation, where the user will be active, then our recommendation, which we already have pointed out, is remember that walking helps you to stay at proper weight, is leading towards more physical activity and changes in weight circumference. As well as our nutritional model, which is assessing the fruit intake, fruit and vegetables, then showing that she's not particularly eating these vegetables and fruits daily, could be then become a goal for her behavior change. So as you could see, this particular module on risk assessment contributes to WellCo by modeling these different data sources, assessing user state and future risk of chronic illness, and then linking to what needs to be recommended at which particular situation and in which particular context. And sometimes it's going to be mostly related to physical activity and well-being or mental well-being recommendation, but in many cases, because of the chronic illness is linked to inactivity and poor nutritional choices in the long term, then it will be like nutritional recommender or general recommender, which will be involved. Thank you very much for your attention. Hello, everybody. Today I'm going to talk for short about our open data and code approach in WellCo. The project is still ongoing, and the type of data which we're collecting is related to the services and applications which we're proposing to individuals and users, and the ones who would like to stay healthy for longer. So you already know this particular view on our application, where the application is providing number of steps and sleep and heart rate and weight. And then there are some specific aspects of data being collected from the individuals with respect to their preferences and their activities, for example, like the sports they like, or if they are at least liking to walk. Additionally, there is a self-reported nutrition, which is not provided to the big details here. However, it shows the different type of meals. There is a timing of the meals. There's a size of the meal, which is self-reported, as well as the content of the meals with respect to vegetable, fruit, sugar, protein, and other ingredients. So when we think about this data sets being available in WellCo, we immediately think about how do we make them open, because we do have around 150 participants in our studies who are collecting this data. However, we're not yet ready, but we do have some experience with sharing the data sets which are available from other project partners, as well from other surrounding projects which are related to WellCo. So let me tell you about our colleagues from FBK, which share the open data sets related to this particular publication, focusing on natural language processing in clinical notes. There is a GMR publication, which is highly prestigious, GMR Medical Informatics journal, and the specific open data sets is the search strategy for systematic literature review, which is conducted between this publication, as well as complete list of reviewed papers and annotations with respect to classifications of what this particular clinical notes included. What is the particular condition, what is the classification algorithm, and what are the publication venues. So once again, this is not yet data collected within the WellCo itself. However, it helped our colleagues from FBK understand what's important for the clinicians when they think from the clinical perspective on the chronic illnesses. As WellCo is there to prevent the chronic illness, it's the other side of the story. What's important, what we should be paying attention when collecting this real world data sets. The second example of open data sets I would like to show you is relating to University of Copenhagen publication, which is also surrounding around chronic care of patients which are chronically ill with respect to use of technologies for this care. And this particular paper is in Frontiers in Psychology and relates to the use of technologies and the attitudes which are surrounding this use of technologies. So what is the particular open data sets being shared with this publication? It's the particular questionnaire or survey used when asking the patients for their opinion. So it could be reproduced with a similar population in other locations. And the third example, which I have for you to think about, when you think about the openness, we have shared code. So the University of Copenhagen, we have developed MQL Lab, which is the infrastructure for collection of the data from wearables and smartphones. And then there's a particular presentation, the paper presenting the infrastructure and the steps taken to develop it. And then we also have shared specific code which enable at least partially to replicate this infrastructure at another labs. And with this respect, we have to say that we already see some particular contributions for the code. For the other publications, we do see that community is being interested in our data being shared. And of course, now getting back to our WellCo project and the data, the specific day by day and behavior data sets being collected from our individuals, we're going to definitely make a lot of effort in order to anonymize them and share them with the community, so that we all can take advantage of knowledge which can be derived from it, as well as ideas on how particular behaviors of individuals are developing over time, changing over time, and how can we tap in this this particular potential of technology for behavior change. Thank you very much.
Welcome to this presentation about innovation management. My name is Ilse Bierhoff and I'm a senior researcher at Connected Care. Connected Care is an SME that designs and develops innovative solutions for digital health and care and is based in the Netherlands. One of our roles within the WellCo project is to lead the work on innovation management, and in this presentation I will give an overview of all the activities performed in relation to innovation management.
I will start off by explaining the approach we took towards innovation management, starting by the definition of it. So innovation management is the overall management of all activities related to understanding needs, with the objective of successfully identifying new ideas and managing them in order to develop new products and services which satisfy these needs. Based on this definition, we work towards the practical implementation and started off by defining an approach that guides the project in terms of innovation management, is flexible enough to be adjusted throughout the project, and is in a language that can be understood by all the consortium members. And the approach we decided upon is to focus on the uniqueness of WellCo that ensures that all topics can be discussed with all consortium members to include all the different viewpoints of the multidisciplinary team that WellCo is. The work on innovation management itself provides really a complementary perspective to all the other work performed in the project. So going a bit more in depth about the uniqueness of WellCo, The first thing we did is to define the end goal of the project, so to say the spot on the horizon where the project moves towards and what makes WellCo unique. Also in line with the definition of innovation management, really the focus is in terms of end user experience and what we want to achieve in that respect. And really the core of WellCo is the virtual coach and the recommender that aims to maximize the well-being of the end user. And therefore the remainder of this presentation is really also focused about the uniqueness of the proposition of WellCo, and it's framed around the virtual coach and the personalized recommendations. In total, we identified 6 unique aspects of WellCo that I will now briefly explain. The first one is the combination of data to provide personalized recommendations. As you can see in the figure, it starts with showing the context of the user to really make sure that WellCo fits into the daily life of the user. And we did that by combining sensor data, emotion recognition, and questionnaires to be completed by the end users. So there's a mix of more objective data combined with subjective data to be able to give the user personalized recommendations. And these recommendations and measurements are not a single moment or one moment only. It really offers longitudinal measurements which can be used to interpret also trends. The second unique aspect is about to recognize and to adapt to the current state of mind of the user. It really focuses on the importance of non-verbal communication, and it uses a combination of facial expression and acoustic information to determine the mood of the user. And once you know the mood of the user, you can use that information to further personalize recommendations. And by doing it this way, it's less invasive than when you would, for example, ask about the mood of a person. The third unique aspect is that the virtual coach can resemble a real-life coach, and for the virtual coach to be considered like a daily companion. And one crucial element for that is that the virtual coach has the ability to imitate the way people incrementally get to know and trust each other through conversations. So that would be the ultimate goal to reach. As a second aspect, it might also be important that the user has the possibility to select from a wider range of coaches to select a coach that really appeals to you. The fourth aspect is that the WellCo coach is to be considered as one of the actors in the network. So it's not a virtual coach that stands by itself. The way the personalized recommendations are shaped is in a way that it really connects all the different actors in the network of the user. So there is the coach that offers the personalized recommendations. The caregivers can stimulate the user in achieving and following up the personalized recommendations and achieving goals. And experts can assist in the validations of the recommendations given by the WellCo system. The fifth aspect is that WellCo offers end users the means for personalized self-management. The focus here is to change the user's motivation and confidence that they are able to self-manage their well-being. And one of the elements is that in the WellCo project we focused on risk management, and by making risk tangible, it's possible to show how certain behavior can alter the risks. And that information can help the senior in their self-management. The final unique aspect is related to social care. And the idea is to not start care from a health perspective, but from the desire to improve well-being. So it focuses on an intrinsic motivation to change behavior in line with other projects that focus on prevention. And in the end, the final goal is to improve health, but it's not the starting point. The 6 unique elements of WellCo contain innovative elements in their own right, but they also jointly work together towards the end goal of reaching an impact on well-being. As you can see, we visualize that by this conceptual model. The numbers here show the unique elements where it's referred to. So for example, at the top, when we combine the information about modeling the context with the assessment of the user well-being, and if you match that, you will be able to provide more personalized recommendation. Same goes for the emotional state analysis. If you are able to adapt to the emotional state of the user of WellCo, you will also be able to provide more personalized recommendations. The idea about the virtual coaches is that when you develop a relationship with that coach, it will help you to motivate to change your behavior. Same accounts for the network that's involved, so the different actors and the peer support can also help you to increase your motivation to change behavior. In case you feel in control over the information and you know what to do, you will also be able to change your behavior. Awareness, education, and also risk management also contributes to this motivation. And the overall idea is that personalized recommendations by itself have an impact on behavior change, but maybe not so big. And the same accounts for motivation for change behavior. That can also have an effect, but by itself not so much. But really, if you combine them, they two jointly, they will have a much bigger chance to really change your behavior. And once the behavior change is established, you in the end will also have an impact on your well-being. Going to the results of the innovation management in the WellCo project, we identified 14 clusters of potential innovations spread across the 6 unique elements that I just presented. We made a conceptual model about how impact on well-being of the user can be achieved. For all the innovations, mini roadmaps are made to document the innovative steps for each of the unique elements that have been taken in the project, the challenges that have been faced, the achievements and potential next steps in terms of development. The unique aspects can be converted into unique selling points for WellCo to enter the market. The work supports the communication about the outcomes of the project, and overall all activities helped to pinpoint why the results of the WellCo project are so innovative. In conclusion, the innovation management is a broad concept. It's not so tangible. So the first challenge faced was to really make it tangible and to also reach a level of concreteness to be able to collect input from all the partners involved in the project, and to ensure that it has added value in relation to the other activities within the project that of course already cover a broad range of things to do within the WellCo project. The approach we took is to focus on the uniqueness of WellCo as a solution to counteract these challenges. And I think this approach worked out quite well. One of the main advantages was that it creates awareness among all the consortium members about the potential innovation in WellCo. It started off as a top-down approach, so the unique elements are still quite high level, and it's complemented by the steps in the mini roadmaps for innovations that really offer a bottom-up approach. So a mixed approach there, and also a mixed approach in terms of reactive and proactive from the point of view of innovation management. So we active in the sense that from innovation management point of view, the deliverables produced by the other partners and the prototypes were scanned and were used to determine the unique elements in those documents, and proactive in the sense that a conceptual model was developed to show how those innovative elements can contribute to the overall goal of the project in the end, to reach an impact on well-being. And as a final remark, I would like to say that I believe that this is an approach that can be reused in other projects as a way to shape innovation management. This was my brief overview of the work done in the WellCo project. I would like to thank you for your attention and wish you a nice day.
My name is Thomas Lettenborg. I am CEO at Monsenso. Monsenso is a Copenhagen, Denmark-based mobile health company focusing on providing an evidence-based solution for mental health. Monsenso's role in the WellCo Horizon 2020 project was to develop the mental health state assessment module, as well as the data fusion and user assessment. We also work with the other consortium partners to create the dynamic user modeling, as well as developing the exploitation plan and the business model canvas for the entire project. The exploitation planning work consisted of both making a market size assessment for the 3 markets in question, Italy, Spain, Denmark, but also a competitive analysis. We did an environmental analysis of the markets. We developed a value proposition canvas for the solution, a business model canvas for the solution, along with a SWOT analysis. Our analysis showed that there is clearly a growing elderly population across the 3 countries that we analyzed, as well as the rest of EU. There is more focused on elderly care and a lot of efforts and investments put into this space from the governments. We also identified that there's a relatively competitive market out there. The conclusion is that the market is there, the product is there, but we've not yet decided exactly how the exploitation, the commercial exploitation, will take place and by which partners that's going to happen.